When you look around the room right now, maybe you're looking at a blue coffee mug on your desk, or maybe a green plant in the corner.
Or just the light, coming through a window.
Yeah, exactly. You probably think you have a pretty solid, like unshakable handle on what is actually happening.
Right. I mean, we've been taught this very mechanical narrative since we were kids.
Right. Light bounces off a physical object, it hits your eyes, your optic nerve fires, and your brain says, hey, that mug is blue. It feels so fundamentally basic, we take it completely for granted.
It really is the absolute textbook definition of reality.
Uh,
It's neat, it's visible, and it is entirely self-contained within our standard biological framework.
totally.
And it makes us feel safe, I think, because it suggests the universe is just this machine we can easily observe.
But today, we're going to completely dismantle that framework.
Oh, absolutely.
We're taking you on an incredibly profound deep dive to fundamentally reconstruct how you, as the listener, understand the very nature of reality and color.
It's going to be a wild ride.
It really is. We've been poring over this fascinating stack of sources, focusing exclusively on a profoundly paradigm-shifting book called Cracking the Code of Light. The author of this book is Mohammad Nasiruddin Azeemi.
Right.
And our mission today is to take you on a journey from, basic eye biology into just mind-bending quantum spiritualism.
Yeah, all the way to the staggering idea that light literally constructs your physical senses in your blood.
Which is just, I have to tell you, the facts presented in this text left me absolutely astounded. Okay, let's unpack this.
We really do need to start with the baseline of how conventional science thinks we see color. Because, well, we have to understand the limits of that box before we can shatter it.
Right, you have to know the rules to break them.
Exactly. So, according to standard physics and anatomy, the most commonly accepted model you'll find in any medical textbook is the Young-Helmholtz theory.
Okay.
This theory posits that on the screen of your eye, specifically the retina, there are three very specific types of cones.
Right, the color receptors.
Yeah, and these cones are individually strictly sensitive to the wavelengths of red, green, and blue, violet.
Right, and it's all about combinations, which feels, logical enough. The book Cracking the Code of Light said that the absolute slightest stroke of a wavelength on our brain's screen activates a particular cone.
Yes.
The text really emphasizes how incredibly delicate this is. So if you are looking at something violet, that specific wavelength is actually activating two distinct cones.
The ones sensitive to red and blue, right?
Exactly. It is the combination of those two biological receptors firing off together that facilitates your brain viewing the color violet.
Yeah,
It sounds like, mixing paint on a palette. It's just happening inside the cells of your eyeball.
exactly. And that is precisely where conventional science usually stops its inquiry. It treats the human being as a closed loop.
Right.
But this is where the limitations of that theory become glaring. What's fascinating here is that color may not actually have to be seen by the eyes to have a massive, measurable biological effect on the human body.
Wait, really?
Yeah. To back this up, the text references a totally independent scientific study from way back in 1932.
Wow, 1932.
I know, right? And this study demonstrated that visible wavelengths of light have a direct, profound effect on the endocrine system without the subject ever visually seeing the light.
Which is completely wild. When I read that, my mind was just blown. I was sitting there trying to process it, and I thought, that is like realizing your skin can hear a symphony.
That's a great way to put it.
It is completely astonishing that the body is processing color entirely outside of the visual framework. But how is that mechanically possible? If the optic nerve isn't the one carrying the signal, how is the light getting into our biological systems?
Well, it happens through deep neurochemical channels that operate entirely independently of the optic nerve.
Okay.
The light is somehow able to physically penetrate and reach the pineal and pituitary glands deep within the center of the brain.
Just bypassing the eyes completely.
Exactly. And the implications of this 1932 study are exactly what Azeemi is building upon.
Yeah.
It essentially proves that color is not just a visual phenomenon.
Right.
It is a physical biological force. It's an active energy acting upon our internal glandular systems without us ever consciously seeing it.
So if light is affecting our brain directly, like completely bypassing our eyes, we have to ask the ultimate question, What is this light?
Yeah, that's the big one.
Because this is where Mohammad Nasiruddin Azeemi transitions us from standard biological light into the spiritual and quantum origins of color. And I gotta say, the claims here are just staggering.
Truly paradigm shifting.
According to spiritual scientist Mr. Mohammad Azeem, human beings with all our advanced technology have so far discovered about 60 different colors, just 60.
Right.
But he states that only those with a vivid insight, which he explicitly defines as the power of the third eye, can actually differentiate more than that limited spectrum.
And the mechanics of how this insight interacts with the broader universe is where the paradigm really shifts for the reader.
That's so.
Well, the book Cracking the Code of Light said that when we place our gaze towards space, our eyesight doesn't just passively receive an empty void.
Like we're just staring into nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we look up, our sight is actually deflected back to the screen of our brain, and it returns with an influence that displays the color blue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the blue sky isn't just a passive canopy, it's an active deflection of our own gaze interacting with the cosmos.
And it is so dynamic. The text uses the example of a rainfall. After it rains, when the environment is incredibly transparent and washed free of dust, the sky's rays of color actually change based on their location.
Right.
And location in this context means something very specific. It means the height, the depth, and the distance of those rays from our planet.
It's all structural.
Yeah. Depending on the spatial factors, the density of the color blue physically converts. It becomes very light or very thick, and sometimes it transforms into entirely different colors altogether.
It really makes you realize that color is not just a static shade.
No, not at all. The text beautifully describes color as an array. There are tiny fragments and incredibly dynamic molecular activities in the atmosphere involving light, oxygen, and nitrogen that are constantly manipulating and transforming these colors before they ever reach us.
It honestly forces you to rethink your relationship with the atmosphere. Every time you look at the sky, you're looking at a living, breathing, chemical, and energetic array.
That is so cool.
And the math behind these phenomena is remarkably specific in the text. For instance, the book Cracking the Code of Light said the distance between a rainbow and us is exactly 90 million miles.
Wait, I have to pause on that because that is such a wonderfully specific and mind-bending claim. Exactly 90 million miles.
Not a rough estimate.
Well,
Exactly 90 million.
it fundamentally challenges everything we assume about proximity and light scattering in our immediate atmosphere. But to truly understand the scale of what Mohammad Nasiruddin Azeemi is proposing, we actually have to go infinitely smaller, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. We have to drill all the way down.
Right. We have to look at the foundational building blocks of this light. What is the most minuscule, irreducible unit of these sun rays?
Well, conventional physics calls it a photon.
A photon, sure. But in Islamic spiritualism, specifically in the tradition of Sufism, this foundational particle is named an aries. And an aries is infinitely more complex and profound than a photon.
Yeah, to even begin to wrap our heads around the concept of an aries, the text brings in the work of Fred Alan Wolf.
The physicist, right?
Right. He's a renowned physicist who wrote Taking the Quantum Leap and the Parallel Universe. Wolf discusses the concept of tachyons.
Okay, I've heard of those.
Now, tachyons are hypothetical subatomic particles that travel faster than the speed of light. Wolf points out an incredible loophole in physics.
What's the loophole?
Einstein's theory of relativity technically allows for faster-than-light particles, but only if they already exist at that speed. They don't accelerate to surpass the speed of light, they're just born faster than light.
Wow.
And the word tachyon itself actually translates to fast heartbeat.
A fast heartbeat of the universe. I love that.
It's very poetic.
But as fast as a tachyon is, the book Cracking the Code of Light said that an aries makes a tachyon look completely stationary.
Just parked.
Exactly. The speed of an aries is utterly unimaginable to the human brain. The text states that an aries circles the entire universe, returning to its exact starting point within a billionth of a microsecond.
It's just staggering.
But here is the truly staggering detail that broke my brain. An aries has absolutely no dimension, no height, no width, no depth, and the whole universe is absolutely filled to the brim with them.
Oh yeah, just packed.
Wait, hold on. I have to push back here because I am in absolute astonishment, and I think you listening right now might be too. If the whole universe is filled with billions of these arays, and they have zero dimension, and they are moving at a billionth of a microsecond,
Yeah.
How do they not just constantly crash into each other and violently destroy everything? If everything is filled with infinite particles moving at infinite speeds, how does physical reality even hold together?
It is a brilliant question, and it is the absolute crux of the quantum spiritual framework. Because arises lack in dimension, they don't take up physical room in the three-dimensional way we understand it.
Okay.
Because they have no mass or volume, they don't replace each other or run into each other in a destructive kinetic sense.
I see.
But, and this is the massive revelation in the text, they do collide with the already existing substances in the atmosphere.
Oh, wow.
And the collision of air rays with atmospheric substances is exactly what makes up space itself. Space is not an empty, dead void waiting to be filled. Space is the active, continuous, dynamic result of these high-speed dimensional collisions.
My brain is doing backflips right now. Are you telling me that space itself is essentially a friction burn from zero-dimensional particles?
That's essentially it.
The collision of these non-dimensional particles literally creates the three-dimensional space we exist in. That is profound.
It really is.
So, if we follow this logic, now that we know colliding R-rises create space, we have to explore how these cosmic collisions form actual environments, massive planets, and most importantly, how they interact with our physical human brains.
Right, bringing it back to the biology.
Exactly. The book defines an environment very simply but beautifully as a diffusion of colors.
And this diffusion of colors scales up all the way to the cosmic level. Think about the stars in our galaxy. The text notes they are roughly a minimum of 5 light years apart.
Okay.
These distant stars emit light that is actually made of physical substances and mechanisms. When these immense rings of starlight from trillions of sources collide with each other in specific areas of space that was, remember, just created by the formation of those rings, they gradually emerge and crystallize as physical planets.
So the Earth itself?
According to the text, our planet Earth was literally formed by these colliding rings of light.
That is beautiful and terrifying all at once. We are walking on crystallized starlight.
Basically, yeah.
But it gets even more personal than that. As human beings living on this planet formed of light, we are constantly being bombarded by these cosmic frequencies. The book, Cracking the Code of Light, said we humans first received the blue ray directly on our heads.
Straight to the crown.
Yes. And this blue ray doesn't just bounce off us, it actually stimulates the brain to such a profound extent that the brain starts getting physically influenced by feelings, sentiments, and thoughts.
The mechanism of this biological absorption is highly selective and incredibly fascinating. Strong shades of these cosmic rays are absorbed simultaneously by our biology, and they leave a profound, moderate impact on the physical brain.
Okay.
This constant invasion and absorption of the blue ray is what continuously changes and dictates our thoughts.
So it's actively shaping our inner world.
Precisely. When a lot of shades leave our brain, their corresponding thoughts actually fade away or scatter into nothingness. The specific shades of light we absorb become our recognized deeds and our actions.
Let me make sure I am grasping this. You are saying our literal nervous system, our capacity to feel deep ecstasy or terrible anguish, is not just a chemical soup in our skull, but is fundamentally the biological absorption of these cosmic light shades.
That's exactly the claim.
To ground this biologically, Mohammad Nasiruddin Azeemi brings in the work of Jacob Lieberman, specifically his book Light, Medicine of the Future. Lieberman discusses the pineal gland, and he describes it as the human body's ultimate light meter.
Right, the body's internal light sensor.
Exactly. It receives activated information from the eyes, specifically routed by way of the hypothalamus, and then sends out massive hormonal messages that profoundly dictate the state of the mind and body.
Yes, and the physical location of this pineal gland is incredibly central to its cosmic function. It is medically known as the epiphysis cerebra, which translates literally to the top brain.
The top brain, huh?
Yeah, and the text notes a really fascinating tactile way to find its approximate location inside your own head.
Oh, I love this part.
If you point both of your index fingers directly behind your ears, pointing inward toward your skull, the exact point where an imaginary line between your fingers would meet in the absolute center of your brain is where the pineal gland sits.
Okay, if you are listening right now, you might actually be doing that, pointing behind your ears. And you absolutely should, because what comes next is truly mind-blowing.
It really is.
We know scientifically that in certain creatures like birds, lizards, and fish, light stimulates their pineal glands by penetrating directly through their thin skulls.
Right, natural skylights, basically.
Yeah, but in mammals, including us humans, science says light stimulates it exclusively by way of our eyes. However, and this just stopped me dead in my tracks, the book Cracking the Code of Light said that human beings also originally received light stimulation directly through the top of the head.
Amazing.
Ancient spiritual writings vividly describe early humans operating basically like walking, breathing cosmic antennas, absorbing starlight right through the crown of the skull.
If we connect this ancient antenna concept to the bigger picture Azeemi is painting, our entire nervous system is fundamentally inspired and driven by waves of electricity.
Okay.
Waves which we subjectively perceive as emotions like happiness and grief. These electrical waves enter our heads to be completely absorbed into the nervous system.
Wow.
There are billions of cells working tirelessly in our brain, constantly dividing and absorbing these atmospheric electrical waves. It means every single emotional state you have ever experienced is, at its root, an electrical light wave from the cosmos settling into your biological framework.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we need to talk about one very specific frequency of this energy, sky blue.
Ah, yeah.
We've established the premise that light enters the brain and physically constructs our nervous system's reality and our emotional states. But this text takes a massive leap forward.
A huge leap.
It claims that sky blue doesn't just influence our mood, it literally physically becomes our blood.
I know that sounds wild. To understand how that could possibly be true, we first have to accept a strange optical truth.
Which is?
The sky actually has no inherent color. The visible blue expanse we perceive above us is just a complex combination of rays arriving from incredibly distant stars, at least 5 light years away.
Okay, that makes sense based on what we've covered.
They are layered and placed together in the atmosphere in such a specific way that our eyes process them as sky blue, even though inherently the void of space they travel through is black.
Right, so this sky blue atmosphere isn't just a pretty canopy we look up at. It is an active substance that is heavily absorbed into the billions of cells in our brain.
Yes.
And here is a concept from the text that is so wild I had to read it 3 times to ensure I wasn't misunderstanding it.
Let's hear it.
When our brain cells gather this atmospheric light inspiration, they pull it together and it literally turns into superstition, reflection, or contemplation within us. Superstition isn't just a psychological quirk or a cultural myth. According to this book, it is a physical gathering of cellular atmospheric light.
Exactly. It completely redefines human psychology as an atmospheric phenomenon.
It's unbelievable.
This gathered atmosphere penetrates deeply into the incredibly thin, microscopic, fiber-like veins of our brain. And as we know, blood flows at a very high speed within these fibers.
Right.
The book Cracking the Code of Light said a very crucial, deeply philosophical sentence that we must elaborate on. Quote, "This continuous circulation, in fact, is human."
This continuous circulation, in fact, is human. That sounds like pure poetry.
It really does.
But wait, hold on. I have to represent the listener here who is inherently skeptical. Blood has iron, it has plasma, it has red and white blood cells.
Right, the physical stuff.
We can draw it from our arms, put it under a microscope, and physically look at it. How can Azeemi claim that this tangible metallic fluid is literally made of blue starlight?
It requires looking at biology through a quantum lens. In Azeemi's framework, the physical components you see under a microscope, the iron, the plasma, are just the densest, most filtered downstream manifestations of that cosmic light energy.
So the light is the core.
The starlight is the fundamental driver. The blue atmosphere literally becomes the energetic wave of blood in our veins. It brings the rings of light from other distant stars directly into our bloodstream. The physical matter is just the shadow of the light.
Shadow with a light.
Exactly. And these invisible starry rings circulating in our blood are what cause all the activities and, crucially, all the flaws or illnesses in our entire nervous system.
That is a profound paradigm shift. I always thought of my blood as just a biological transport system for oxygen.
Most people do.
But this text suggests our blood is quite literally a circulating river of starlight. Not a metaphor, a practical, energetic reality.
And the subtle variations in this light matter immensely to our health. The text explains that light blue produces very weak, vulnerable shadows that contain their own individual cosmic influences.
Okay.
But when these specific waves of light blue shadows add up inside our biology, specifically reaching a minimum of 2 or a maximum of 6, we actually start to sense our illusions as reflections.
Gee, really?
Yeah. If this wave of reflections is intense and dwells completely motionless at its position within us, we remain in a state of perfect health. without any flaws or breakdowns in our nervous system.
So we're talking about our physical health, the literal composition of our blood, and the nature of our thoughts all being entirely dictated by the biological accumulation of light blue shadows from stars millions of miles away.
That's the grand theory.
Which perfectly leads us to the grand finale of this text. How this light blue energy doesn't just keep our nervous system healthy, but literally manufactures the physical senses we use to navigate the world.
The mechanism is just fascinating. Sky blue essentially behaves as an electronic flow. When this flow enters the brain cells, it actually evolves and expands into space.
Okay.
The true marvel of this biological process is that the electrical flow hitting the retina is what makes different physical shapes visible to us, and it physically changes the perceived colors of the world to green, yellow, orange, and so on.
The book delineates very carefully between two kinds of blue, light blue and dark blue. It is the light blue color that affects our brain cells first.
Right.
Our physical cell walls, depending on whether they are structurally thick or thin, act as a literal physical filter for this light blue inspiration. And this biological filtration process itself is what changes the color.
It acts like a prism almost.
Exactly. Then hundreds of thousands of these tiny brain cells perform collectively, working together to turn what are essentially invisible cosmic illusions into a demonstrated physical visualization of reality.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most astonishing paradigm shift in the entire book. We tend to think the senses of our eyes are exceptionally sharp, simply differentiating among pre-existing electric waves in a solid world.
Right. We think the world is just out there and we're looking at it.
But the profound reality presented here is that our senses are actually made up of colors. When light rays, which, remember from our discussion on irises, carry absolutely no space inherently enter our eyes,
Yeah.
they actually create space.
Oh my goodness.
When the sky blue ray enters our brain cells, it turns into the physical dimension of space.
I am sitting here in complete astonishment. Think about what this actually means for your daily life. When I take a bite of an apple or when I reach out and touch the hard wooden table in front of me, I am not interacting with solid matter in the way I thought.
Nope.
I am actually experiencing a highly complex electrical manifestation of filtered blue light. The absolute bottom line of the book, the grand universe-altering thesis, is that we are constantly surrounded by electrical rays.
Right.
When these cosmic rays travel through our brain cells, they turn into our vision. And all the other senses, your sense of taste, your sense of smell, your hearing, your ability to physically touch, are purely created due to this electrical color phenomena.
It's all connected.
Every single smell, every rough or smooth texture, every beautiful sound is just your brain's translation of colored light.
It really forces a complete reevaluation of human existence.
Yeah.
I mean, if our entire reality, from the rapid life-giving flow of our blood to our most delicate sense of touch, is simply the biological processing of non-dimensional quasars and colored cosmic light,
Yeah.
what happens if we consciously decide to change the colors we expose our minds and bodies to daily? If we are fundamentally constructed of starlight, can we intentionally rewrite our physical reality simply by changing our light diet?
Thanks for watching and listening to this podcast, which will enhance your knowledge and will change your vision toward your health and its cure through colors. Like the video, subscribe the channel, and forward it to like-minded people. Also subscribe, join our WhatsApp channel, which link is given below. Allah Hafiz.